Welcome to Unbound, the podcast with Beth Curry, author, storyteller, and survivor. This is where books meet real life, where Beth reads chapters from her work and breaks free from the traditional audiobook format, diving deeper into the personal experiences, lessons, and liberation behind every page. Nothing is off limits. Let's get unbound.
Hi there, welcome back to Unbound. Off script. I'm Beth, and you're here to listen to me. Today's episode might be a little different. I don't know, no conspiracy theories, no humor deflecting from the message, no entertainment value padding out uncomfortable truths. I want to talk about integrity today, about resilience, about what it actually means to live authentically in a world that's kind of constantly giving you permission to be mediocre. I want to share some wisdom with you, not my wisdom, but some truths that I think need to be said and we all need reminding of. Some of it might sting, some of it you might want to argue with, and some of it you're going to recognize in yourself and maybe not like what you see, and that's good. It means you're paying attention. If you want to fight about this at all, feel free to join the Facebook group. We always have further discussion. I'd like to keep things civil. I don't know. I don't think anyone's going to fight over this, but who knows? I might say something that pisses somebody off. This isn't really about motivation. Motivation is cheap. I guess it's that thing you feel for 15 minutes after watching an inspiring video, but then it evaporates the moment things get hard, right? And I think this is about something deeper. It's more about the fundamental principles that separate people who build meaningful lives from people who just kind of exist and wonder why, nothing ever changes. So no fluff, no filler, just truth. Okay. So I'm going to start with the foundation, integrity. And I don't mean integrity in the abstract feel-good sense. I mean the actual practical reality of your words matching your actions. What you say matters. Your words are only as powerful as the action they precede. So when you don't follow through, you rob them of any value, right? So think about that for a second. Every time you say you're going to do something and then you don't do it, you're not just failing at that one thing, you're devaluing every word that comes out of your mouth going forward, right? So you tell yourself you're going to start working out and you don't. And you tell yourself you're going to start that project, you don't. You tell yourself you're going to have that difficult conversation, you don't. And every time, like every single time you break a promise to yourself, you're teaching yourself that your words don't mean anything. You're training yourself not to trust you. And if you can't trust yourself, why the hell should anyone else? Don't tell people what they want to hear or what you think they want to hear. That's coward behavior. That's you prioritizing temporary comfort over long-term respect, right? That's you living in the sad, artificial world of unfulfilled commitment, because that's what it is, artificial, right? You're creating an illusion of your intent without any of the substance. You're performing the role of someone who has their shit together while doing none of the actual work. There is one person in my life, I've talked about him before, you know exactly who I'm talking about if you're a regular, I'm not going to say his name, but he is someone who was brought up with integrity and holds more integrity than any other human I've ever seen. And he is not afraid to tell people the truth. And people don't like him for it. They think that he's harsh or uncaring. I don't know. There's just been a lot of, people who have really taken offense to him without actually listening to what he's saying and considering the fact that he's just being brutally honest. And that's who he is. He's not going to pander to you. He's not going to be cruel. He's not an asshole, He's a really nice guy. And like this, when you learn this about him, you realize this about him, right? So he's not fake. So going back to, performing the role of someone who has their shit together while doing none of the actual work. You're doing it when you're like that. When you're lying and when you're making promises you have no intention of keeping. I still struggle with this for sure, but I'm working on it. I'm getting more disliked by people who don't value integrity. But when you're saying things just to get people off your back or to maintain some sort of an image, right? And that knowledge eats at you. It has to, because deep down, you know that every unfulfilled commitment is a piece of your integrity dying. But the alternative can be scary for some people because although it's simple, it's brutal, but it's still simple. So the alternative is don't create an illusion of intent. Fulfill it through accomplishing goals and accepting consequences. That's it. Accomplish the goal or accept the consequence of not accomplishing it. There are no options. There's no third choice where you get credit for intending to do something. Your responsibilities won't go away. They won't. You can avoid them. You can ignore them and pretend they don't exist, but they will still be there waiting. And when you choose to avoid them, you bar yourself from ever enjoying the area of your life that they occupy, right? And that's the real cost of avoiding responsibility. Not that you'll get in trouble or face some external consequence. The real cost is that you become a prisoner in your own life and you're locked out of the very things you claim to care about because you won't do the work required to actually participate in them. Right? So you want a better relationship? Stop saying you'll work on it and actually work on it. And if you want a better career, stop talking about what you're going to do and just friggin' do it. Want better health? Stop planning to start tomorrow and start right now. Your words mean nothing without action. So either act or stop talking. That's it. But don't keep living in this middle ground where you're constantly performing intent without any kind of follow through. Because that's not integrity. It's just like elaborate self-deception, right? Another one, the world changes when you do. So the hard truth about this is the world will hurt you. It will. There's no avoiding it. People will disappoint you. Life will knock you down. Things will not ever go according to plan. And that's why you have to learn to heal. Not build walls like I spent my whole life doing. Don't shut down. Don't armor yourself so heavily that nothing can touch you. Heal. This is what I'm doing. Because what happens when you close your heart to protect yourself from pain, you also close it to joy and connection and love and everything that makes life worth living. The world is going to be cold, especially now. It's worse than ever right now. So be warm. The world will surround you with darkness, so cast your light. This isn't naive optimism. This isn't just be positive and everything will work out. This is understanding that you have a choice in how you respond to the world. You can meet coldness with coldness and darkness with darkness and hurt with walls and defensiveness and bitterness, right? Or you can be the exception and you can be the warmth in a cold world and you can be a light in the darkness. And you know what? Everything will change when you change. Not might change, will change. Because it's in you, Like a miracle, your whole world will change when you change. And when you lower your guard, you'll see that you aren't actually under attack. Not by, your fellow citizens. When you start being honest, you'll learn that there's no reason to lie. And when you reveal your true self, you'll discover that you have absolutely nothing to hide, right? Most of the defenses that we build and most of the walls we construct and the masks that we wear and everything, they're just protecting us from threats that don't actually exist. We're guarding against rejection that hasn't happened, and we're hiding from judgment that isn't coming, and we're lying to avoid consequences that wouldn't materialize if we just told the truth, right? We're living in a prison of our own making, and the door isn't even locked, guys. It's not locked. Opening your heart requires courage, for sure. Real courage. I've been going through this process for the last few months. It's a kind of courage that says I'm willing to be hurt again, because the alternative, living closed off and defended and armored, is worse than any pain someone else could inflict. And that's the truth, right? Don't disagree with me. It's true. The pain of living a guarded, defended, closed-off life is worse than the pain of occasional disappointment or heartbreak. One is a constant, low-grade suffering that never ends, and the other is acute but temporary. So choose temporary pain over permanent numbness and vulnerability over protection, and choose to open your heart, especially because the world can be cruel. That's where life actually happens, not in the defended, closed-off places, but in the open, vulnerable, honest places. Now, another one that I want to talk about. Safety is the enemy of meaning. So talk about risk here, real risk, not maybe I'll try a new restaurant risk, the kind of risk that makes your stomach drop and your hands shake, okay? Again, I'm speaking from experience from the last few months and things that I have done and how I've put myself out there. The products of creativity are only valuable because they're unpredictable, right? So if you think about that, if the outcome was guaranteed and the path was clear and success was assured, what would be the point? Like, where would the value be? If the answers were already known, who would seek expertise? If the wilderness of possibilities were already charted, who would fund its exploration? We value the new, the creative, the innovative precisely because they're risky, because they might not work, because we might fail. Failure is a real possibility, right? The unpredictable is threatening and the way through is unclear. And that's precisely why you need to go there. Because if the threat weren't real, confronting it would be meaningless. And if there was no danger, there would be no courage required. And if there was no uncertainty, there would be no need for faith. Danger and uncertainty define risk, and risk is necessary for reward. It's not just a fancy little saying. It's true. Not just material reward, not just success in the traditional sense, but the reward of knowing you were brave, right? The reward of knowing you faced the unknown and came out on the other side. The reward of discovering capabilities you didn't know you had. You cannot grow in safety. None of us can. You can't discover your limits in comfort. You can't become more than you are by staying exactly where you are, right? We're addicted to safety, aren't we? We're addicted to the known and the predictable and the secure. We take jobs we hate because they're stable, and we stay in relationships that don't fulfill us because they're familiar. And we live in places we've outgrown because moving is uncertain. And then we wonder why life feels meaningless and why nothing excites us and why we feel like we're just going through the motions. It's because we are. We're choosing safety over meaning and predictability over possibility and comfort over growth. And the universe does not ever reward that. Life doesn't reward that. You don't get extra points for playing it safe. You just get safe and secure and stagnant. So take the risk and start the business and have the conversation and make the move and tell that guy you love him and create the thing and put yourself out there. Will it work? Maybe not. Will you succeed? Maybe not. Will you get hurt? Probably, but you'll be alive. You'll be engaged. You'll be participating in your life instead of observing it from the sidelines. And I think that's worth any amount of temporary failure. Now, another one, show some passion, let go to move forward. Passion, real passion, not the Instagram version where everything is aesthetic and curated, the messy, burning, all-consuming kind, right? Passion is the measure of your readiness to let go. Listen to that again. Passion is the measure of your readiness to let go. Passion isn't about holding on or about grasping. It's not about control either. It's about letting it go. So be willing to fail as genuinely as you desire to succeed. And I think that's what separates real passion from hobby, right? Real passion from interest, real passion from the thing you say you care about, but you never actually pursue. If you're not willing to fail, like really fail, publicly fail, embarrassingly fail, then you don't actually want it that much. Because the true, palpable, painful, burning experience of life isn't a thing to be grasped and held on to. It's a thing to be swept away in, right? You don't control passion. You surrender to it and you let it consume you and you let it change you and you let it take you places you never planned to go. The flames of passion don't consume, but they purify, and the reward for pursuing passion isn't what you're able to take away, but what you're able to leave behind. So, that's the part that nobody tells you. Passion burns away everything that isn't essential, and it strips away the pretense and the fear and the smallness. It shows you who you really are when all the bullshit is burned off. And what you leave behind, the fear and the doubt and that need for approval, the addiction to comfort, whatever, that's the real reward, right? You become lighter and freer and more yourself. But you have to be willing to let go. You have to be willing to let go of the outcome and the need to look good and the fear of failure. Passion absolutely requires surrender, and most people aren't willing to surrender. They want to be passionate and in control, and passionate and safe, and passionate and guaranteed success. And that's not passion. It's enthusiasm with training wheels or something, right? Real passion is jumping off the cliff and figuring out how to fly on the way down. Good luck. Don't do that. Real passion is burning the boat so you can't retreat. It's all in, no safety net, complete commitment. Are you capable of that? Are you willing? Because if you're not, that's fine. But don't call it passion. Call it what it is, a casual interest you're not willing to sacrifice for. There's nothing wrong with that, but be honest about it, to yourself at least. I, just about a year ago, jumped off a cliff. No safety net, complete commitment. I went in and I told somebody something that changed my life. And I'm not going to get into that. Changed this person's life too. I'm not going to get into that right now. That's a whole other episode, but I've done it. Like, I'm speaking from experience through this entire episode. And I just want to make sure that you know that. I'm not just preaching here. I'm coming from a place of experience. So the next one is be resilient. Growth requires darkness. Resilience, everybody wants it. Nobody wants to develop it, because developing resilience requires the one thing we're all trying to avoid: suffering, right? Self-fulfillment, awareness, and strength are a seed planted deeply within you that has to be nourished with meaningful experiences to break through to the surface of your being. Make sense? And what nourishes that seed? Not sunshine and rainbows, guys. Not positive affirmations and vision boards. The sadness and struggle of life are the water for your soul. But you have to let it seep in to change you. You have to let it penetrate to the places where the light can't reach. And most people don't. Most people feel pain and immediately try to numb it or avoid it or distract from it. They medicate, they scroll, they drink, they work themselves into exhaustion, anything to not feel the pain. And in doing so, they rob themselves of the very thing that would make them stronger. Life begins in darkness. Seeds don't germinate in light. They germinate in dark, damp soil. Growth happens underground where you can't see it. You can't see the mystery. At work, you can't track the progress. You can't measure the transformation. You have to just trust that it's happening, that the struggle is doing something, and that pain has purpose. Emotions change like weather. We all know this. Circumstances pass like clouds, and you need both the rain and the sun in order to grow. But we're obsessed with the sun, aren't we? Like, we want perpetual sunshine. We want constant positivity, and we want life to be pleasant and easy and comfortable all the livelong day. And when it's not, when the rain comes and the clouds roll in and when the things get dark, we think something's wrong. We think we failed and we think we need to fix it immediately. But what if you didn't? What if you just let it rain? What if you let yourself feel sad or angry or lost or confused without immediately trying to make it stop? What if the darkness isn't a problem to be solved, but a necessary phase of growth? The strongest trees are the ones that weather the most storms, right? The deepest roots grow in rocky soil, and the most resilient people are the ones who've been through hell and came out on the other side. Not because we're special, not because they were born different, but because they didn't run from the darkness. They sat in it and they let it change them, and they emerged transformed. That's what resilience is. Not avoiding pain, not being unbreakable, but being willing to break and then putting yourself back together stronger than before. Are you willing to break? Are you willing to sit in the darkness and trust that growth is happening even when you can't see it? Or are you still trying to live with your head in the clouds, sunshine and positive thinking your way through life, wondering why nothing ever changes? So the next one's kind of a big one that I used to struggle with a lot. I think a lot of people do. I probably still might on occasion. Again, another thing I'm getting better at. Don't worry about what other people think. Their opinion is not your reality. And that's going to free you if you let it sink in. Their problems aren't caused by you. Your success isn't the reason they failed. Your strength hasn't caused them to be weak. Your confidence isn't the source of their insecurity. Let that land. Your values haven't led to their misguidance, and your growth isn't the catalyst for their decay, and your well-being shouldn't warrant their jealousy. Your resolve doesn't validate their anger, and your fulfillment isn't why they feel empty. But they will act like it is, won't they? They'll make comments, they'll give you looks, they'll subtly or not so subtly try to bring you down to their level. And if you're not careful, you'll believe them, and you'll think your growth is selfish. You'll think your success is somehow taking from others, and you will dim your light so that they don't feel bad about staying in the dark. Stop doing that. Please stop doing that. Be honest, and you'll be respected. Be kind, and you'll be loved. Be yourself, and you'll be able to see others as they truly are. And that last part is key. When you are being yourself, truly yourself, not the performed version, and yes, I'm talking to you, and you know that I'm talking to you specifically, you can see others clearly. You can see their projections for what they are. You can see their insecurity, their fear, and their pain, and you can have compassion for it without making it your problem. Someone's jealousy of your success, that's their issue to work through. It's not your responsibility to manage by staying small. Someone's discomfort with your confidence, that's their insecurity talking, not a reflection of you being too much. Someone's criticism of your choices, that's their values speaking, not an objective assessment of your path. Other people's opinions of you are none of your damn business. Not because you shouldn't care about anyone, but because their opinions are filtered through their experiences and their wounds and their limitations. They're not seeing you. They're seeing their projection of you. So why would you live your life based on that? Why would you make decisions to please people who aren't even seeing you accurately? Live your truth, be yourself, unapologetically and fully, without dimming or shrinking or apologizing. Because as I always say, the people who are meant to be in your life will love you for it, and the people who aren't will just fall away, and that's exactly how it should be. Another one, be optimistic. Your perspective defines your reality. This one's hard for me to talk about because unless you really, really go deep, it feels very shallow. So talking about optimism, real optimism, not toxic positivity, and this is what I'm referring to, not denial, real clear-eyed optimism. So if something seems too good to be true, maybe the fault is in your willingness to accept the truth. So if you think about that, how often do you reject good things because you don't believe you deserve them? And how often do you sabotage opportunities because it can't be this easy? Don't align your opportunities with your insecurities, okay? This is what most people do. An opportunity comes along, a relationship, a job, a chance, whatever. And instead of evaluating it objectively, they filter it through their insecurities. I'm not good enough for this. This won't work out for me. Something will go wrong. I always mess these things up. And guess what? When you approach life with that mindset, you're right. It doesn't work out. Not because the opportunity wasn't real, but because you brought your insecurity to it and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you want to be an active participant in the events of your life and not a helpless bystander. You are not defined by your circumstances, but you can define your circumstances by your perspective. And this is crucial. Your circumstances are real and your challenges are real and your obstacles are real. I'm not denying that, but your perspective on them, that's where your power is. Two people can face the exact same circumstance and have completely different outcomes based solely on perspective. One might see an insurmountable obstacle and the other might see a challenge to overcome, right? One feels victimized and the other one feels galvanized. So where are your decisions leading and which horizon are you facing? You know, you're free to choose, right? You can choose how you interpret events and you can choose how you respond and you can choose what meaning you assign to your experiences. You will never arrive at the desired destination if you're not willing to travel in the right direction. And this seems obvious, right? But look at your life and look at your choices. Are you moving toward what you want or away from what you fear? Because those are very different directions and they lead to very different places. Optimism isn't pretending everything is fine, right? It's believing that you can handle whatever comes. It's trusting that challenges are opportunities for growth. And it's knowing that you have agency and choice and power, even when the circumstances are difficult. So choose your direction and choose your perspective and choose to believe in possibility instead of limitation. Or don't, but understand that you're choosing either way. Pessimism is a choice too, and it's one that guarantees you'll never reach anywhere worth going. The next one, you have to do it for yourself. No one's coming to save you. This one hurts, you know. It's the one that nobody wants to hear. It's the one that once you really accept it, it changes everything. You know, the meaning of your life is yours alone to create. Nobody else can make you happy. Nobody else can fill you up. No one else can fight your battle or take your journey. Nobody's coming to save you. Not your partner, not your parents, not your siblings, not your friends, not your therapist, not your guru. Nobody. You are alone in this. Fundamentally, existentially alone. And that's not depressing. It's liberating. Oh my God, Beth, you're crazy. But it's true because it means you don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to wait for the perfect circumstances. You don't have to wait for someone to believe in you before you believe in yourself. You can start now, today, this moment, right now, with exactly what you have, exactly who you are. When you're at the bottom, looking up can be discouraging as hell. I know. It's a long ass way. The climb seems impossible. The summit seems unreachable. But every strained pull makes you stronger. And every painful hold makes you tougher. And every inch you rise makes you more determined not to fall. Have you slid back? Have you been knocked down? Have you ever really even had the courage to climb? Because the thing is, most people never even try. They stand at the bottom looking up, complaining about how far it is, how hard it looks, how unfair it is that they have to climb it all. And they wait for it to get easier. They wait for someone to carry them. They wait for the mountain to get smaller. It doesn't, it won't. The mountain doesn't change. You have to. And nobody can do it for you. Nobody can make you start. Nobody can make you get back up when you fall. That's all you. And I know it's scary. I've been there. I know it would be easier if someone else could do it. I know it would be more comfortable if you could outsource the hard parts of your life to someone who cares more and tries harder and has it more together, but they can't. And if they could, it wouldn't matter, because the meaning and the fulfillment, that growth, that comes from the doing, not from the destination, not from the achievement, but from the climb itself. So you have to do it for yourself, not because it's fair, not because it's easy, not because you feel ready, but because it's your life and it's your journey and it's your responsibility, and nobody else is going to live it for you. The next one, follow your heart. So this is the bravery of having a dream, right? So I'm going to tell you something most people won't say. You are incredibly lucky to have a dream. Most people don't. Most people have settled into comfortable mediocrity. They've given up on wanting more, because wanting more means risking disappointment. So they play it safe and they lower their expectations. They convince themselves they never wanted those things anyway, whatever. And then they spend the rest of their lives with a quiet, persistent ache that they can't quite name. Don't ever feel bad about struggling with your dream. Never feel bad about waiting for your dream. Never feel bad about missing a shot at your dream, having to start over for your dream, losing something valuable in pursuit of your dream, or failing to capture your dream, because at least you're trying. At least you have something pulling you forward. At least you know what you want. The world is filled with people wading through sedate, pacified lives, afraid of dreaming more. Afraid. That's the key word, and it's sad. It's impossible to dream without knowing that the dream might not come true, and that's just too much for so many people to bear. It might fail. You might work your whole life towards something and never achieve it. You might sacrifice and struggle and suffer and still not get what you want, and that possibility is terrifying. So most people choose not to dream at all. They choose certainty over possibility and safety over meaning. And they think that makes them smart and pragmatic and realistic, but it doesn't. It makes them dead inside. Speaking from experience, you don't realize how brave and lucky you are to have a dream at all, to want something, work towards something, to let yourself hope for something, even when there's no guarantee. That's courage. It's real courage. It's the kind that most people don't have. So follow your heart, even when it's impractical, even when people tell you to be realistic, if they laugh at you, whatever, even when the odds are against you. Follow it, because the alternative, that living without desire and without purpose and all that shit, without something pulling you toward more, that's worse than any failure could be. In my opinion, you might not achieve your dream. You might fall short. You might discover it wasn't what you thought it would be. It might evolve. You might actually settle into something just before reaching your dream, and you might be very happy with that. But you'll have really lived with purpose and passion and direction, and that's worth more than a lifetime of comfortable numbness, I think. The last one I want to do, stay positive. Faith when it's challenged. Staying positive isn't about denying reality. It's about not creating obstacles that don't exist. That's all. There are so many obstacles already in place. Why create more in your mind? Right? There's already so much shit to bog you down. So why become mired in your own thoughts? There are already so many people willing to hold you back. Why be one of them? Life is hard enough without you making it harder, without you making a catastrophe out of every situation, without you assuming the worst in every scenario and talking yourself out of things before you even try. Like, why focus on anything that won't lead to a positive outcome? That's not naive. It's strategic. It's understanding that your mental energy is finite and precious and should be directed towards things that actually do serve you. You need your strengths and your ingenuity and resolve the most when things are grim, right? When things are easy, anyone can be positive, anyone can believe, anyone can keep going. Faith is most necessary when it's being challenged, and determination is most useful when you feel overwhelmed. And that's when character is revealed. That's when you discover who you really are. Not in the good times, but in the moments when everything's kind of falling apart and you have to choose, give up or keep going. Staying positive doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means choosing to look for the way forward instead of fixating on how bad things are, It means asking, what can I do? Instead of what is this or why is this happening to me? It means that you're capable of handling whatever comes instead of assuming you'll crumble under pressure. It's not delusion, it's resilience and it's strength. And that's the difference between people who build meaningful lives and people who let life happen to them. So stay positive, not because everything's great, but because you're determined to make it through. Because you refuse to add your own negativity to the pile of challenges you're already facing. Because you understand that your mindset is one of the few things that you can actually control, and you're choosing to use it as a tool instead of a weapon against yourself. Right? So, there you go. Those were 9 hard truths about living with integrity and authenticity and purpose. Have some integrity. Your words mean nothing without action. Okay? Open your heart. The world changes when you change. Take a risk because safety is the enemy of meaning. Show some passion. Let go to move forward and be resilient because growth requires darkness. Don't worry about what people think, because their opinion isn't your reality. Be optimistic. Your perspective defines your circumstances. You have to do it for yourself. No one's coming to save you. Follow your heart. You're brave and lucky to have a dream at all if you've got one. And stay positive because faith is most necessary when it's being challenged. These probably aren't easy truths to a lot of people. They require work and sacrifice and courage, and they require you to be uncomfortable and uncertain and vulnerable, but they're real. And living by them, even imperfectly, will build a life that's meaningful. Not easy and not comfortable, but meaningful. And that's worth more than any amount of comfort or safety or approval. Trust me. Trust me. So what are you going to do with this? Are you going to nod along and agree with the sentiment and then go back to living exactly the way you've been? Or are you going to actually change something? Because that's the real question. Not whether you understand these truths, but whether you're willing to live them. The choice, as always, is yours. Thank you so much for listening. Now go do something that scares you.
Thanks for listening to Unbound with Beth Curry. Join the conversation in the Facebook group or visit author.bethcurry.com. Want to support the show? Head to ko-fi.com/unbound podcast. Until next time, stay unbound.